will be live in a few seconds. We need to just make sure all our channels are connected properly. We go out on Facebook, YouTube, and X. I just want to remind everybody that when we go out on Facebook, Facebook has changed their policy. Things that are live now just stay on there for 30 days and then they get deleted. I will say that we do go out on X as well. So all of our live streams are available on X. So if you can't find a specific episode on Facebook, you will be able to find us on X. And I'm continuing to go through here to make sure that we're hooking up. Okay, YouTube's connected. X is connected. Now we got to make sure get Facebook connected here. All right, it has started streaming on the Chatham Journal Facebook page. And I think we are good. Let me just check my connection here. Again, folks, you're just listening to us in the background. I'm making sure that all connections are set before we go fully live here. And I've got coming up on it dropped off of Facebook. Let's try this one more time. And now it looks like we are not live yet on Facebook. Let me try this one more time. Oh, there we go. All right, folks, Gene Gallen here with the Chatham Journal. Got Ashibo Rojas of the Chatham News and Record. We are back after a spring break week. There was some sports going on. I know Northwood, Cameron Verdon, the athletic director of Northwood, with a bunch of parents, took a bunch of Northwood students overseas. They went to exciting places like Paris, London, I think Venice, and a whole bunch of other places. It was whirlwind. Pretty much every day they were in a different city in Europe. Again, we're going to go into the spring sports update: soccer, softball, baseball, lacrosse, track, and field. And of course, today the Chatham News and Records weekly paper comes out. So Ashibo's going to let you know what's in the paper. Pick up the paper. And of course, everyone's favorite, Ashibo's Athlete of the Week. We get someone new every week. Ashibo's got a new Athlete of the Week this week. And we'll let you know who that is. And then Ashibo and I, before we started this live stream, talked about what things we will be covering. Some of the things we have set, some of the other things we will play around with and figure out so that we have coverage going on for you. So let me go ahead and get rid of the graphic. And Ashibo, go ahead and give us a rundown of sports and then get into Chatham County sports, and then get into what's in the paper before we get into your Athlete of the Week.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody, from spring break. So, yeah, this week, everybody got right back into action in spring sports. So, starting with baseball in Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference, we had Seaforth beating Southeast Alamance this week 10-0. And that one, Easton Sykes led the way 3 for 4 from the plate, an RBI. And then Bryce Honeycutt did his job on the mound with 8 strikeouts to shut out the Stallions. And then the Hawks also beat Williams 4-3 this week as well behind Jaden Raiders, 2 for 3, 2 RBI performance from the plate. And yeah, so Seaforth baseball continuing to do some good things here in the spring season. Second place in the conference. I haven't played too many conference games so far, just 5, but they're behind Southeast Alamance, who's in first place at 10-1 in the conference. And Seaforth, like we said, sitting at second place. And then Northwood, they played a non-conference game against Apex and lost that one 11-0 this week. Chatham Central got a big win following a loss at the Hilltop Invitational last week during spring break, and they beat Central Carolina Academy 16-5. And then Jordan Matthews just once again still looking for their first win of the season. Got a young team this year and hasn't really gone as well as they wanted to. They lost to Bartlett Yancey 5-0 this week as well. And then over in the Central Tar Heel 1A conference for baseball, Chatham Charter is leading that conference as well, 5-0 in conference play. They got a big win over River Mill Tuesday night, 8-0 in River Mill, second place in the conference. They're playing again tonight. Not tonight, Friday night at River Mill, and I will be at that game. But in the win on Tuesday, Chatham Charter got a boost from Zach Cartret, who also went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs at the plate. And then on the mound, he also, struck out 8 batters in that game, 0 hits in his 4 innings on the mound. So great performance for him and big win for the Knights. So like we said, they got to do it again on Friday to really get a strong hold of the conference there as we get into the last stretch of the season. And then in softball, not too many games this week, but we had Northmore hosting Jordan Matthews earlier in the week, and they did beat the Jets 6-4 in a close one. Southwest Randolph also beat Jordan Matthews 4-1 this week as well. So not the best week for the Jets, but at least it's just one conference loss. They're still sitting behind Chatham Central in second place at 7-2 in conference play. And then Chatham Central, who's 9-0, got another big win over Graham last night. I think it was last night or earlier this week. And once again, continuing to dominate in the conference this year. And then Southeast Alamance got the best of Northwood, 15-5 in this week's of softball action. And then looking at girls soccer scores as well. And yet we're looking at the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference. Northwood got a big win over Northmore, 4-0. And looking at the conference standings, like I said, we haven't had a lot of teams playing the last couple of weeks. But as they're looking at now, Seaforth leading the conference at 5-0 in conference play. Southeast Alamance right behind them at 6-1. And then you have Northwood right there at third place at 5-2. So big win for the Chargers in that one as they try to move up in the conference standings because they're right there. And Woods Charter over in the Central Tar Heel 1A conference, dominating that conference this year once again. They beat Southern Wake Academy 8-3 and continuing their win streak in conference play. So, that's our girls soccer action just for this week. As far as I'm going to be at tonight, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this later on, but I will be at Seaforth tonight as they host Southeast Alamance. And like we said, that first and second place showdown for the conference there at Seaforth. But moving over to boys lacrosse, Seaforth got 2 big wins this week. Conference win over Cedar Ridge, 16-4, led by Cameron Exley's 5 goals and Ivan Grimes' 5 goals as well. Those 2 have been huge for the Hawks on the field this year. And then Seaforth also beat Chapel Hill 10-9. And in that one, Oscar Ditter led the way with 2 goals. Close one for the Hawks playing out of conference, higher classification. So good competition, but they get the win and continue their win streak as well. And Northwood, they got a big win over Southeast Alamance, 17-1. And in that one, Grayson Cox got 4 goals in that win. And then girls lacrosse, Seaforth and Jordan. It's the only game of the week this week so far. And Seaforth won that one 18-2. Seaforth is playing Northwood tonight, actually, at 6 p.m. at Northwood. So that'll be a big conference game as well in the girls lacrosse standings. And, as far as scores, that's pretty much all we have this week in spring. And then track and field, we also had a meet at Jordan Matthews. They had their second home meet, I believe. Yeah, their second one of the season. Just to give the team scores, we had Woods Charter, Chatham Charter, Northwood, and Jordan Matthews, and Chatham Central. So pretty much all of our schools except for Seaforth in this one. On the girls' side, Northwood won the meet as a team with a score of 127. Jordan Matthews came right behind with a score of 91. And then Woods Charter at third with a score of 54. Chatham Central finished 6th. And Chatham Charter finished right behind them at 7th. And then on the boys' side, Jordan Matthews took the win and close team score over Northwood. So Jordan Matthews got 97. Northwood finished second with 96. And then Chatham Charter finished 4th at 40 points. and Chatham Charter fourth. Woods Charter also tied with Chatham Charter at 4 to 40 points, and then Chatham Central is right below them in sixth place with 36 points. So we'll have more of the individual feats in the roundup as well when we recap this meet and some of the other meets during the week in next week's paper.
All right, so that kind of rounds things up. One of the things we were talking about, folks, before we started is stuff that's going on in the transfer portal in the college game. Sheila is aware of several players. Well, why don't we talk about the two players I think everyone in the county is aware of? You've got Drake Powell, who's at UNC, and you've got Jaron Stevenson, who is at Alabama. What's the latest that you've heard or haven't heard about either one of these?
Yeah, well, I guess we can start with the big news this week is that Jaron Stevenson did, in fact, hit the transfer portal from Alabama. And like we said, last year, before the season, he played a big role, especially in their run to the Final Four last season. This year, not as big as a role. He struggled a little bit shooting-wise during the season, was a little streaky there. And then, of course, he didn't play as much in the later games in the tournament. Did have to play some and start, actually, I think, in the beginning with some injured players. But, he's a good piece that I'm sure a lot of schools will be looking to add to their rosters, a big forward that can shoot the ball. He's a really, really good defender and a really good rim protector as well. And so, I think Jaron will have, a lot of options. I think he is in the portal under a do not contact tag, though. So he might already know where he's going. It's just a matter of him, announcing it and making a decision on where he's headed. And then Drake Powell, I know a lot of Carolina fans have been, waiting around trying to hear what his intentions are this season, whether it's going to be going into the draft, staying, or entering the transfer portal. Haven't heard from him, which could be a good sign for Carolina fans. We don't know exactly what he's decided to do yet, but we know his close teammate, his veteran, Seth Trimble, is returning, which could be a good sign as far as keeping Drake around if he wants to stay and run it back with his guy. But like you said, still haven't heard from Drake and on the official word, so keeping our ears on the ground for that one.
Yeah, I was going to say before we start, I mentioned to Sheila that about a month ago I had heard from some teenagers that Jaron was going to go in the portal. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to keep that to myself. I'm not sure how reliable some teenagers' information is. And I apologize to the teenagers I heard it from. You were absolutely right. And I think the big news, I will give a plug for Andrew Jones of the Tar Heel Illustrated. You can find him on YouTube, Tar Heel Illustrated. He's been following sports in the Triangle for 20 years. He's one of the folks that's worth listening to. He's one of my favorite sports writers besides Ashibo. But he does a nice job. So if you're interested in what's going on with the Tar Heels here locally, I would recommend going to tarheelillustrated.com or just go to YouTube. Search on Tar Heel Illustrated. You can pull it up. Andrew does. He's got several folks that work for him. He's the publisher of Tar Heel Illustrated, so it's worth looking up that information. And again, if Shibo finds anything up or I find anything, we will let you know. And the other thing I was going to say, I'm going to pop this up, just a reminder, because I know his follow count has been going up. Take advantage of the fact that Ashibo's on X. Just follow him on Ashibo R38. I know I follow him, and I also repost the stuff that he puts out there because it's usually good information. And the thing is, for example, at tonight's soccer game, he'll be posting information about the girls' soccer game in Seaford. And then after the game, he will probably talk to the coach, and he'll probably talk to two of the three players and say, hey, and put that out on X. So if you want something a little bit more current, but still pick up the paper on Thursdays, because the next thing we got coming up, Ashibo, you ready to talk about your athlete of the week?
I'm ready.
Hold on. Let me get rid of this. And I got it ready to pop up when you're ready to announce who your athlete of the week. But you know what? Let me get my face out of the way.
Yeah, so athlete of the week this week for the Chatham News and Record is Cameron Exley from the Seaford Boys Lacrosse team. We mentioned Cameron earlier for his performance this week, but from last week, he earns the honors from his 5-goal performance in a 24 rout over Southeast Alamance. He also assisted on 3 scores in that game as well, and he recorded a team high 6 shots on goal. Yeah, we talked about Cameron alongside his teammate Ivan Grimes as well, the two leading scorers for C4, the guys they look to put some points on the board. They've been huge, especially Cameron this season was C4's pretty successful season so far. And he leads the team with 36 goals. His first in assists per game, 2.4. And this is all about it at the time we wrote this. So I'm sure he has more after this week's game. But his leadership, like we said, alongside Grimes and, this team that's been together for some years, they're at the top of the Central Mid-Carolina Conference standings, 8-0 at the time we wrote this. So, yeah, congratulations to Cameron. Definitely, we're going to come out. I'm definitely plan to come out to some more lacrosse games this week. Well, not this week, but in the coming weeks. I think C4 is playing Orange again and playing them at home. It's going to be a big one on Tuesday or April 15th. And then they get to play Northwood later this month as well, which should be a pretty good game. Down the street rivalry. Of course, Coach Cox and Northwood will be excited for that matchup as well. So, yeah, congratulations to Cameron.
All right. Hey, Cameron, congratulations, folks. Again, pick up the Chatham News and Record today. You'll see the Cameron Exler. He's from Seaforth High School. He's Ashibo's Athlete of the Week. The other thing I want to let folks know, this past fall, we have had guests on here, coaches, and so what we're going to do is we're going to have some coaches coming back with us in the springtime, and we need to hide that because there we go. We're going to have some coaches. Ashibo and I have already talked about which coaches we'll be reaching out to. Maybe we'll start next week, but I think the feedback I've gotten and we've gotten is that folks appreciate having the coaches on there. The coaches enjoy having another venue to talk about their teams, about their sports, and what they're doing here in Chatham County. Chatham County is a great place for high school sports these days. As Ashibo mentioned, you've got the Seaforth lacrosse team, you've got the Seaforth girls team, you got boys playing volleyball here in Chatham County, which just started last year. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Also, we've got softball and baseball. So we're going to try to figure it out. Again, there's only a few months left to the school year, but we'll try to figure out which guests we can get on here who want to talk about their sport, about their team, and about playing in Chatham County. All right, Ashibo, are we ready to talk about, well, we know you and I are planning, you definitely will be there tonight for the girls' soccer game at C4. Hopefully will be there as well. You got any plans yet, or that's not definite yet for the next few days?
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely going to be at C4 tonight for girls soccer. Tomorrow night, like I said earlier, I will be at River Mill for the baseball game against Chatham Charter. Like I said, a big one for the Knights and controlling the conference there. And then on April 15th coming up, I do plan to be at the C4 and Orange Boys Lacrosse game at C4. That should be a big one. I think that's going to be first place and second place matchup in the conference. And C4 got the big one over Orange the first time, so I'm sure Orange is going to come ready to play, and we should see a pretty good game there. So that's about as far as I know for right now of where I'm going to be for the next couple of days.
Yeah, I was going to say, for folks, if you've never seen a lacrosse game, it's worth going out to. It's interesting. You've got all sorts of various athletes. There's usually several scores per game. I was at the Northwood versus Southeast Alamance game, and Northwood managed to score 8 points in the first half. So it can be interesting. And I know a lot of the players that play on the lacrosse teams are usually dual sports athletes. So they're not just playing lacrosse, but in the fall they may be playing something else. And of course, as Ashibo mentioned, you got softball and baseball coming up, and we're going to go into full swing. I think this week we're going to end up early. It's only 12:18, but again, we had spring break last week, and there were a shortened kind of sports schedule. So, folks, we will see you next Thursday at noontime. Appreciate all you following, and if we have a coach as a guest, we'll let you know ahead of time. All right, Ashibo, anything else before we close up?
Also, too, I don't think we went through the stories we have coming out in the paper this week. Yep.
Oh, my mistake. Let me. That is all my fault. All right, I'm going to get out of the way. Ashibo, tell us what stories are in the paper.
Yeah, just right quick for people that haven't picked up the paper yet or see what we have online so far. So starting with URA Charter and Chatham Central playing in a softball game last week. URA Charter actually made it interesting. They're in the fifth inning, came all the way back after being down 6-1 and scoring I think 10 runs, I think, in that inning to take control and win the game at the end. So you can read more about that game and how the comeback went down. You have Northwood, Machado Central playing in the Hilltop Invitational over spring break up here at Orange High School. And I went, checked out both teams on their second day, I think on Friday afternoon. And you can read more about those games and how they did in that showcase. And then we have some other news as far as Jordan Matthews student athlete advisory committee, winning an award from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. They earned a commissioner's trophy for their Buckets of Love service project that assisted people affected by Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina. So I talked to Jordan Matthews athletic director Barry West, who was an advisor to the group, about the project and about the kids that did it. And great story. And congrats to them for what they did and the impact they made over in Western North Carolina. And then we also have, of course, spring sports roundup, as we do every week, with some of the other sports that went on during spring break, either at our charter schools, but are also at the traditional high schools as well. And we also have another spring college sport update as well, so you can keep up with the former spring athletes that are on the next level. Updates on, of course, player statuses, stats as well. And also we have some championship from the winter season that's mentioned in this story as well. So you can read more about that. And then we have some shorter stories, some quick hitters here. Callie O'Neill, if you guys remember in the last week's paper, we had a story on her going over to Trinidad and Tobago to compete with the Team USA in the U17 CONCACAF tournament, which qualified them for the U17 FIFA World Cup. So Team USA, Callie O'Neill, she did help them qualify for that. They were undefeated in their group play. But, of course, she has to get called back again for, once again, restart the process of coming back to, I guess, a training group and making a team there if she wants to go to the FIFA World Cup in Morocco later this year. And then Seaforth is leading the 2A Wells Fargo Cup standings after the winter season. So you can read more about the points. And I think I did the count. They're up to 12 combined individual and team state titles this season. So they're in great shape to repeat after winning it last year. I think they have, the largest lead out of all the schools in each of the classification groups. So they don't have the most points, but they do have the largest lead. So like we said, they're in great shape to win the Wells Fargo Cup again, which is huge for the C4 program, especially before they go into the 5A classification next year.
All right. I just noticed this. I think it came out a couple of days ago. Let me see if I can bring up the image. It's the image of North Carolina High School Athletic Association has announced their championship sites. And I just clicked on it and let's see if it pops up here. There it goes. All right, folks, that's where the championship games are going to be. And on my screen, it's showing up super small. But it looks like, let's see, a lot of the championship games are going to be local. We got games at Matthews. We got games at Durham. We've got games over all over the place. So there's an idea of that. Shibo and I will post it up on X as well, so you'll be able to see that. And that gives you an idea of where the championships are going to take place and on what day. So, again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of our teams getting into those state championships and doing well this year. So we'll see what happens. All right, Shibo, anything else?
Nope, I think we got it all covered.
All right, folks, thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will see you next Thursday. And I will be a little bit more organized.